Now, Dr. Liman, you are a fairly new entrant into the sort of Nigerian media space because your journalistic career was all in the BBC until last year when you got this job and you came in as DG of FRC. And from the perspective of someone who's just coming to this country and looking at the press here, what are your views regarding the Nigerian media and the way they carry out their responsibilities?
Well, I think what I will say, Kadria, you're right that, I spent most of my journalistic career with the BBC and I came in last year. I think what I will say is that I think there is a lot that, needs to be done in the media industry in Nigeria. What I mean by that is that I think the skill set, needs to be improved. And I think the condition of service for journalists in Nigeria needs to be addressed very well if we want to see an independent, media existing in Nigeria. Of course, Nigeria as a country needs an independent media. So
that kind of suggests that you're saying you don't feel at the moment the media is 100% independent?
No, what I mean is that independence, it depends on, the way you look at it. When you have journalists that are not paid very well, we know all what happens. We know what brown envelope is in Nigeria. If you look at that, in that term, the independence of the media is being, is constrained because if someone demands or is given a brown envelope, that influences, the kind of journalism that he's going to do. So that's what I mean. But for me, as I'm heading a public media now, I think what I will say is that it's not that it's not independent, because I've been here for more than 1.5 years. Nobody from the government has directed me to say don't do this. So in that way, I think there is that free hand in how the media handles things. But then when you have a workforce that is, demotivated, then I think that influences what the product that you are going to get from that kind of, workforce.
Yeah, Chidi, is it your opinion that this is perhaps the biggest challenge that we face, or do we face a myriad of challenges and this is only one of them?
Thank you. I think in a sentence, my own assessment of the Nigerian media today is just to say that the Nigerian media is in very deep crisis, and that crisis is emblematic of the problem of the larger Nigerian society. But also to emphasize that what Dr. Liman said about independence is, for me, at the core, pardon the pun, of the crisis in the media. Without independence, and independence doesn't just mean somebody controlling you in terms of telling you what to write or not to write. If the media is not financially independent, there is nothing it can do. So it's that financial independence that would enable it write the kind of stories it wants to write, pursue the kind of stories.
But crisis is a pretty strong word, particularly when, if you look across the continent, Nigeria is recognized as having a very prolific set of media institutions and houses. No. In terms of numbers, the numbers are still quite large.
But what are we talking about?
So that's what I really need you to. You need to sort of be specific.
Yeah, so
when
I'm
you say crisis,
talking about independence. You compare Nigeria to South Africa, for example. The Sun newspaper in South Africa sells about 500,000 copies a day. You'll be hard-pressed to find any Nigerian newspaper that sells 20,000.
You'd probably be hard-pressed to find a lot of other countries that have independent press selling newspapers, because that time
well, you're looking at a population of 180 million. The South African population is just about 1/3 of the population of Nigeria.
So for you, the sales of newspapers, think is a significant indicator of how well we are doing or not doing?
That's one of it.
Okay.
That's one of it. But for me, the core is that independence, financial, and there are many dimensions when you talk about the financial independence of the media.
Okay, let me bring Aisha in here, because as a member of the civil society organizations in Nigeria, you're an advocate and you rely heavily on the media to help you with a lot of your work. Are you satisfied with the role the media has been playing as far as advocacy is concerned, in terms of just allowing you to be able to do the things that you need to do?
Well, when you frame it that way, I would say no. They could do better. And several things come to mind. I will start with what Dr. Liman talked about. And when you said nobody has given you instructions, I find that self-censorship is actually more powerful than somebody giving you directions. And so my experience engaging with the NTAs or the FRCNs, that's the government-owned media, is that typically they will self-censor. They will say to you when you're speaking or when you want to speak, don't say that, you can't say that, what do you want to say? They rarely want to have live programs, especially on radio, because they don't know what you're going to say and they're worried. That's been my experience.
Baisha, we do have live radio shows. I mean, we have politics.
Okay, so we're not, this is not going to reduce to a defense of Mansour's portfolio.
So there's self-censorship of that. Then with the private media, you find that it's the expense. So for me, I would say that while understanding the challenges, and I think Chido has mentioned it, that obviously there's financial constraints. So we don't expect as civil society to have free time. But I think there's some issues where even the media should be hungry for people to talk about an issue. But we get the sense that even when you want to advocate for things, you have to pay them. And civil society, again, is like every sector in Nigeria under financial constraints. So for me, I'd like to see more of a partnership between the media and civil society, just in terms of free airing of content. So I'll give an example. I went through Punch today, online, Daily Trust, and I think The Nation, just to see how many of the traditional media have picked up on the EndSARS protest. And I found none, like very few. I think maybe Daily Trust had one small story, but all the others haven't picked up on it. So things are happening that are affecting thousands.
Yeah, I'm going to
of
have
people.
to interrupt
Traditional
you
media
because
are not picking up on it at all.
Okay, we will come back to the conversation, but I'm going to have to take a quick break. Please don't go away.